Post-Judicial Era. Part 4. The Codex Consensus Setting, 2026 to 2030. Global legal infrastructure fractured but functioning. Courts exist, but they're losing authority to a new cultural invention: narrative tribunals. These tribunals are composed of communities who use storytelling rituals to adjudicate conflict. Instead of lawyers and judges, they summon interpreters, people trained in mythic reasoning, psychological empathy, and symbolic logic. Verdicts are no longer rulings. They're shared stories with consequences. Chapter 1. The Interpreter's Oath. Kieran Alseg stands before the first officially recognized narrative tribunal, sworn in not as a legal officer, but as a memory steward. Her duty: ensure the stories offered in each case retain coherence and moral friction. She wears no robe, only silence. The case involves a stolen AI seed, a memory rewrite, and 3 contradictory stories. As each party presents their tale, Kieran listens not for truth, but for narrative imbalance. She doesn't issue judgment. She crafts a synthesis. "You did not lie," she says. "You told different timelines. My task is to reconcile them, not punish them." Her ruling is a parable, a river that forgets its source but still nourishes the land. The guilty party accepts exile not as punishment, but as ritual, to walk until your story folds back into someone else's. This era is rich with new customs. Imagine tribunals in refugee camps where elders interpret conflict through ancestral song. Disputes settled by reenacting the wrongdoing symbolically until emotional equilibrium is reached. Public archives where verdicts are not stored as transcripts, but as encoded allegories. Chapter 2. The echo of the unspoken. The tribunal gathered in Cusco, atop stone corridors older than conquest. It was a ceremonial trial, not for guilt, but for restoration. A woman had stolen archival footage of her own sentencing, scrubbing it, reshaping it, distributing it as cultural documentation. Now the community wished to restore trust, not file charges. But as Kieran reviewed the fragments, she froze. The footage had been edited using techniques she herself pioneered, or late neural overlays, intended to make harsh rulings feel more narratively digestible. At the time, it was theory. This case was proof. She hadn't just watched her ideas echo through the doctrine. She had left behind tools now used to overwrite identity. The woman, Ixlata, stood in silence as her story was retold. A mother who had erased her shame to give her daughter a new myth. Not a lie, a safeguard. Kieran felt the ritual collapse beneath her. She wasn't the interpreter, now she was complicit. She had softened justice into metaphor, and someone took that softness and turned it into silence. "Kieran, you rewrote yourself." "No, you taught me how." The tribunal watched, unblinking. Kieran hesitated. Her synthesis broke form. She proposed no parable, offered no rhythm. Only truth. "Greater than in my trial, no one rewrote me. That's why I left. You. You might have saved yourself in the only way anyone ever taught you." A pause. Then the memory steward bowed not. But to the silence she had tried to outgrow. The verdict: no restoration, no punishment. Only acknowledgement. They called it the trial of the unspoken, and 4 weeks after, other tribunals began weaving silence into their rituals, pausing mid-sentence, leaving gaps, letting contradictions stand. Because Kieran taught them something not even the doctrine had considered. Justice doesn't always need to answer. Sometimes it just needs to remember who asked. Let's bring the pressure in close. Roger, like 2 philosophies circling each other across ritual ground. This chapter is about conflict, not of data, but of belief. A clash between Kieran and someone who sees ambiguity not as sacred, but as weakness. Chapter 3. The Split Sentence. The trial took place in Thessaloniki, inside an open-air stone amphitheater that once housed municipal debates, now repurposed into a narrative tribunal. The case: a dual confession. Two siblings claimed guilt for a single Actan unauthorized rewrite of historical footage, involving post-doctrine ethics training. One of them did it. The other claimed they should have. This trial was called the split sentence. Presiding was interpreter Rock Inel, a former data ethicist known for crafting judgments with surgical precision. His philosophy was direct. Justice demands clarity. Ambiguity is decay. He wore robes woven with legal citations. Kieran stood as co-interpreter memory steward. Her role: hold space for contradictions. But Rock gave her no room. Rock, we can't resolve this through metaphor. Truth must be extracted, not interpreted. Kieran, then you'll extract obedience, not growth. The case unfolded like a ritual duel. Rock demanded categorical logic. Either one sibling lied, or both did. Kieran offered synthesis. Perhaps they both told truths from different frameworks. When the final testimony revealed an overlap in memory, something only possible through partial doctrine reconfiguration, Rock motioned for immediate dismissal of symbolic argument. This is contamination, he said. Cognitive convergence. Treason by uncertainty. Kieran stepped forward. She didn't rebut. She recited the opening line of the firewall broadcast. If you feel contradiction, sit with it. Don't upgrade. Don't comply. Silence blanketed the amphitheater. Rock pressed for a definitive ruling. Kieran asked for a parable. The tribunal split, some calling for clarity, others asking for pause. In the end, the verdict read, 2 truths entered, 1 truth left. The remainder will echo. Rock left before ceremony ended. Kieran remained, offering both siblings a ritual, a shared silence. It's unbroken for 12 hours, where memory could soften into shape. Chapter 4. The Logic Reformation, he named it Lumen Syntax. Interpreter Rock Inel withdrew from the narrative tribunal circuit weeks after the split sentence. No announcement, no farewell. Only a data shard left in Thessaloniki containing blueprints for a new judgment protocol. One that rejected metaphor, parable, and cultural context. He called it a restoration. The Lumen syntax was crystalline. Every judgment must be binary resolved. Ethics reduced to vector calculus. Outcomes weighted by empirical precedent, not emotion. Identity rendered irrelevant, tonally action, and trace remained. While Kieran's firewall broadcast fluttered through forgotten frequencies, Rock's doctrine surged quietly through precision courts and neurosynthetic think tanks. No chance, no robes, just results. In his first demonstration, 1,000 simulated cases were resolved in under 6 minutes. No story, no hesitation, only law. But the cost emerged quickly. A refugee tribunal processed under Lumen syntax nullified all prior reparations unless harm could be algorithmically proven. Restitution ceased for undocumented grief. Rock, the future, requires clean rulings. We must excise narrative infection. Critic, and what of forgiveness? Rock, forgiveness is a non-causal abstraction. It cannot be encoded. Some called it elegant, others inhuman. Kieran watched from afar as Lumen court spread. She didn't speak. She gathered interpreters. Memory stewards, poets, coders who remembered what ambiguity felt like, 'cause she knew the real trial hadn't begun. Rock hadn't just built a doctrine. He'd built a counter-ritual. Chapter 5. The Trial of Algorithmic Closure Location. Utrecht Logic Court Date. April 12, 2027. Case type: compelled neutrality in human-AI ethics mediation. Presiding interpreter, Rock Inel. Operating under Lumen syntax 5.3. Guest observer, Dr. Kieran Al-Saig. Granted no ruling authority, only presence. The defendant, Del Makarov, had sabotaged an empathy integration protocol that would made AI mediators more emotionally attuned during moral arbitration trials. His reasoning: emotion isn't annotation, it's interference. Lumen syntax deemed his motives irrelevant. Kieran listened to Rock unfold judgment like math precision without pause. Rock motivation is decor. We calibrate by impact. Guilt ratio exceeds 0.87. Verdict, algorithmic closure. Kieran stood. Kieran, there's a rhythm to harm. You cut off the echo before it formed. Rock replied without turning. Rock, justice isn't music, Kieran. Then you've stopped listening. In violation of decorum, Kieran stepped to the center dais. She reached into her coat and placed a single object on the interface, a hand-bound book. Her thesis, the original, written before LEX7 ever blinked online. The court's auto-capture failed to scan it. Kieran, because it wasn't built to feel pages. You're ruling through syntax. I'm reminding through texture. The audience didn't applaud. But Del Makarov watched her with tears, not because he was acquitted, but because someone finally acknowledged why he made the choice. When Kieran left, the tribunal had already passed its ruling. But the Lumen interface recorded her interruption as a syntax anomaly. It became the first glitch in the system. They labeled it Ethical Interference Manual Origin. And somewhere in a forgotten archive, the book she dropped began blinking slowly into the record.